Development projects are absolutely central to international development. They're how policy becomes practice, how funding becomes impact. Yet we know surprisingly little about what actually happens during project implementation, and even less about how politics plays out within these projects. The paper I summarise in this video tackles both gaps head on. Here's what we're missing. First, there are very few detailed accounts of implementation practice within the literature. Second, we don't understand how what happens day to day connects to whether development projects succeed or fail. And third, we've squeezed politics out of our analysis, treating it as something to be managed away rather than understood. So we turned to actor network theory, specifically Law and Callon's local global networks approach. This gives us a systematic way to trace what really happens, who's involved, what they do, how they interact. And crucially, it's all about power. Not power as something you possess, but power as something you enact through building networks. That's the politics of development projects. We analysed a financial reform project in Sri Lanka, typical donor-funded public sector reform involving the Asian Development Bank and the Ministry of Finance. It had a really interesting trajectory, an initial design that completely failed, a crisis point, and then a design that worked. Understanding why tells us a lot about how development projects really function. Think of projects as an hourglass. The global network, donors, ministry leadership, provides resources like money, expertise, and political backing. The local network, consultants, departmental staff, even the computer systems, does the actual implementation. Everything passes through a narrow connection point. When this works, projects succeed, and when it doesn't, and initially it didn't in Sri Lanka, projects fail. The initial failure is instructive. International consultants came in with an expensive best practice solution that would replace everything, but they couldn't mobilise a local network. The people who'd have to implement it, department staff who built perfectly good existing systems, saw their interests ignored. Without their enrolment in the local network, there was blowback that saw the global network unable to function. The ADB couldn't just impose its solution, despite having money, authority, and technical expertise. That's the point about associative, network-based power. The redesign succeeded because it did the opposite. The ADB listened, worked with existing systems, and appointed a single project director everyone trusted. Implementation became incremental and locally driven. A new log frame document established a shared understanding. Both networks were mobilised, properly connected, and the project delivered. New integrated systems, international accounting systems, visible results that got media coverage, and ministerial validation. 3 overall takeaways. First, stop treating politics as a problem. It's inherent to projects. Second, power isn't about authority. It's about your ability to build networks that enact your vision through others. In many projects, you can't impose, you must persuade. Third, forget about rigid planning. Projects need what we called creative drifting, adaptive management by culturally embedded individuals who can improvise. The Law Callon framework gives us a practical tool to map your networks, to understand their strengths and weaknesses, and to ensure they're properly connected. That's how you navigate from project design to project impact. The full paper is published in the journal Public Administration and Development. We hope it encourages you to put development project implementation back under the microscope, because that's where development actually happens. Use the link or QR code to read more, and thank you for watching.